Welcome back everyone to theCUBE here at our NYSE studio. Of course, we have our Palo Alto studio connecting Silicon Valley and Wall Street. I'm John Furrier, host of theCUBE. We got a great segment previewing the Agent Conference happening on May 4th and 5th. Simon and his team at First Hand VC really kind of putting on an event that started as a small community event, now growing into a mainstream event. Of course, theCUBE and the NYSE Wired program and community are supporting it. And again, it's where the leaders get together and talk about, got Robin here from OpenTable and Deepak from Sunrise AI. You're the Chief Growth Officer and CEO. We got the chiefs here. Welcome to theCUBE, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
So Simon and his team really put together what I think is a phenomenal conference. It's at the Hilton this year, which means it's probably going to blow up. I can see the online, they're doing some good targeting, of course. But it really kind of grew out of an organic demand side of the agents. Well, early on the agents, now it's mainstream. But the agent work is a platform activity. And I think a lot of the SaaS stocks that got hit recently and people freaking out, not understanding what's happening, is a tell sign to me that there's a little bit of arbitrage opportunity for the developers and people who have positions. Robin, OpenTable obviously is a significantly strong app, gold standard in terms of what you guys do. I mean, I've been using it since the beginning. It's gotten better and better. You got the supply side, you got the user side, you got tons of data. You guys are in the middle of the transformation, but you're also on the wave.
Yeah,
you're participating.
Super excited about the opportunity here. For us, it's around sitting where I'm sitting, companies that have established positions and our ability to move much faster. It's kind of like the dream, and it gives us a chance to move at the speed of startups, which historically has been hard when you start gaining a larger team, but that's been great to see over the last 2-3 years.
Yeah, and a lot of the activity that's happened in the agent side, I've been very bullish. People have been very bullish on it, super hyped up in a good way. I mean, it's maybe a little bit overhyped, but when you see the Claude bot now called Meltbook because of the whole kind of like who owns the name, to me that was like a DeepSeek moment in the agent world. DeepSeek showed that you can do things with GPUs. What came out of China was interesting. That said, hey, we don't need to worry about maybe buying NVIDIA straight up. We can actually configure the system. And that changed how the open source software were rolling out, so it's created a ton of innovation. The Meltbook thing is interesting because it's a similar vibe in the sense of, hey, we did something, it went crazy, it was kind of like a meme in its own way, it's kind of fun, kind of crazy. One hand looks like Skynet's happening, they're going to sell your human, all these kind of things, but it shows what could be possible. And I think that speaks to the power of agents. So, when you have a platform like OpenTable and you have these new opportunities with users and businesses, everyone's looking at this. Is that the template? Is that where we think it's going to go? Because it's coming in from the growth on more MCP servers, more software being written. We're going to have folks from Arcade and LangChain in later today. They're going to talk about this operating model for agents, a framework, patterns, all kinds of new stuff is happening. How are you guys looking at that?
Yeah, I think what you're saying here, John, is absolutely correct. Right? I think the foundational architecture to really supercharge and accelerate this whole advent of agentic infrastructure all the pieces are in place, right? You have models and LLMs that are, can be very enterprise ready. You have consumer proliferation with like the Claude bots of the world. So people are getting more and more comfortable with it. I do think that there is an interesting inflection point, and this is maybe where the SaaS is dead mantra with the markets taking that swing last week, maybe a little bit overwrought, but to get to enterprise ready, production ready, and I know, Robin, we've worked a ton on this, that's a different ball game. And that is going to require a level of expertise, but still moving at the same speed. But the consumerization of all things agentic, I think, is amazing because it gets, one, people comfortable, but two, it starts to paint a picture of what the art of the possible is.
Robin, talk about from the OpenTable perspective. You have a unique perspective, one, the installed position. Competitively, you guys are nested in there beautifully. You got the supply side, restaurants and venues, and you got the users. Massive amount of data. You got a data, it's a platform, it's not just a SaaS app anymore, so you kind of are living what people are trying to figure out. And again, the stock market, I wrote multiple pieces on LinkedIn, wrote multiple blog posts on this. I think everyone got it wrong. I think they just don't understand the gap between value creation and extraction and then how the infrastructure is building up. But you're technically a SaaS app by definition, but now moving super fast into AI intelligence layer. How are you thinking about this into your growth strategy? What's your view?
The value coming from automation and agents accrues to multiple places and to everyone. We're super excited about what the next 12, 24 months bring. We're working with folks like Deepak, who are on the cutting edge, not just with implementation, but with ideas. And the ironic thing about the agentic era for us is relationships are even more important. Relationships with our customers, our restaurants, relationships with partners, where we ideate with them on what technology they should be building on top of platforms. And last piece is we spend a lot of time, our greater OpenTable team with Deepak, and to be able to extract, hey, what are the priority projects you need to work on? He spends a lot of time at our offices just talking to people. So the relationship piece is so important in the age of agentic AI, because while implementation is commodity, creativity is where basically it's going to be differentiating.
Yeah, that's going to be a growth opportunity for it. Deepak, talk about Sunrise AI, what you're working on, because again, the opportunities that are emerging are, and if you look at agents and AI, it's exposing things you couldn't do before,
Right.
More than it is eliminating positions. So that's
100%.
clearly coming out of the narrative, but there's still a lot of work going on. What are you guys doing? Talk about the firm and how you guys see the approach with OpenTable.
We live in the space of human-augmented AI. I think that's what we've been throwing around. We forward deploy, I wouldn't even say just AI agents, but AI systems. I see agentic work, task-based work to be very feature-heavy, which is awesome, which you need features to essentially accomplish tasks, jobs, right? However, the platform and the overall intelligence for teams like Robin's is ultimately critical. And what I mean by that is, that human augmented AI piece, it's us coming in, it's not consultancy, it's not just buying generic software, right? And there's always this conversation around build versus buy, and I'm sure those are internal conversations that you were overwrought with, but it really is now build with, and I think that's the new wave. So probably justified, while there may have been a market swing around SaaS is dead and that talk back around SaaS models, but it's going to evolve.
What's your take on the experimentation to production? You mentioned some of those stats there. I think there's a lot of excitement. Confidence levels are getting better, but still not at the bar. I think that people are going to be rolling out massive systems. I think the agent fiasco we saw, that was a great demo with Claudebot, was I think a tell sign, again, a DeepSeek moment. To get the confidence, what is needed? Because the cliche of we gotta do more AI, which is kind of like more people hand waving, but everyone is infusing AI into things, which means it's native into whatever workflow you have or whatever. What's your view on this? How do you bring that AI in? How do you bring AI in, not as a bolt on, hey, we got AI, look at us, we got some retriever capabilities with vector embeds, it's all great, versus real deal production?
It can't be hand wavy, it can't be a bolt on, it has to be AI native from the start. Now, one thing that I think is contrarian is that, working with folks like Robin, our customers, like, if I go in and we go in and say, hey, you have to change everything to morph into AI native, like, that's a huge change management issue. That's just not going to get done. The right way to do it is to build the right relationships, get buy-in from teams, and I think Robin and the OpenTable team have done a fantastic job of rallying the troops, and perhaps, Robin, you should talk a little bit about what that looks like.
Hey, Robin, talk about the relationship and how you're embedding this, because again, we hear different success stories and failures. We document them both. The trend is failure tends to be more boil the ocean over, and success is knock down some wins and see the value and understand where the value points are. Are you guys taking that kind of approach? How are you guys thinking about taking this in? Is there a priority list? Is there a selection criteria? How does that work?
It's we're still in the experimentation phase. We're already seeing really good results. So I think about it as automation like any other automation. What are the things that you hate about your job? Like everyone, we have well over 1,000 employees now. We send out a survey, what are the things you hate about your job? And we take that in and say, hey, which of these are perfect for agents? And then we go out and implement them. The beauty of the agent era is, even if the process is not great, but it works, it doesn't matter, because as long as you can push it end to end to the agent, we custom build that agent and they can take the whole process. And once you get a few of those wins like we have with Deepak, then everyone gets excited. So then we have a couple layers. So Deepak's working on custom agents, and now we're thinking about how do we self-serve agents. That's the next layer.
Self-serve for users.
Yeah, so within OpenTable, we have platforms where you can build simple bots, and then you always have champions that are excited about using some of these platforms, and then obviously the more complicated stuff, we bring some experts, whether it's internal or through Deepak's team.
What's the big learnings that you've had so far in putting your toe in the water and rolling the stuff out?
You have to institute a mind shift in that you don't need to get everything perfect before you deploy the agent.
Yeah.
Just like when you hire someone new, they're here to fix the process or take on be another resource. You don't need to fix it and do change management beforehand. And that's been the hardest thing to think about, actually. And that mindset shift is really, really interesting.
Yeah, yeah. You got to be comfortable with that out of the gates. You can't be like, give me the proposal, we'll evaluate it, and then maybe give it the green light. I mean, I see people deploy that all the time. It's like, it always fails. Deepak, I want to get your thoughts on some of the execution side of it, because we were talking before we came on camera. This year is not a strategy risk, it's an execution risk.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much consistent with everyone we talked to that's leading this wave. I had a guest come on this week, former friend and leader of AWS's public sector, Teresa Carlson, and we were talking about cloud and how cloud was similar to AI infrastructure, obviously different acceleration rates.
Yeah.
And she made a good point we were riffing on, which is the cloud inhibitor to Amazon was not the fact that you could provision with a credit card, which every startup did, 25 years ago. I mean, I did it, it's like we're born in the cloud. It was the fact that they cracked the code on the enterprise. And she said, made a comment, and I'd love to get your reaction, is it was security and compliance that made it happen, because the deals with the CIA, the large enterprise and the banks, they had to hurdle over the security bar and compliance. Agents is a compliance nightmare if you don't do it right. There's delegation involved, there's trust. I mean, there's a slew of factors. How do you take that into consideration? Do you agree with that that's a key thing? Not like cybersecurity, like threat detection, but like the posture, the security resilience bar.
The security posture is paramount. Like it is table stakes when you're talking about execution risk at an enterprise level, right? We have to go through the right security reviews to make sure that our infrastructure is sound. AI agents, a lot of the failures around agentic work, especially over last year, has really circled around security, right? These co-pilots that are out there, they're generic, they don't necessarily do what they're supposed to do, and even so, they do it in an insecure way where what is happening with the data? I have to be able to look at Robin in the eye and say, your data is safe and secure.
Yeah.
If I can't do that, it's a no-go, right? And justifiably so, which is where I think in 2026, production-ready enterprise AI agentic workflows will have to be privacy and compliance-led. That infrastructure is paramount, And I will say, like, maybe I'm being a little bit, let's call it racy with a lot of other AI native company founders like myself, where we are hungry for data. The more data that we get, the better our models are, the more efficient, the more accuracy there is, right? But I'm happy to give up precision or even efficiency on our model or in our workflows if I can look at every customer of ours and say, your data is ring-fenced, it's single-tenant models, it's not going anywhere, right? We are behind your firewall.
So you're saying there's a bar that's good enough to hurdle over and get the win, maintaining those key things.
I would say we want to be striving to clear that bar, right? And it's actually very interesting. I was early days at Dropbox, the advent and proliferation of cloud software, like talking to IT folks and saying, hey, you're going to take my data off-prem? Like, what is this thing, the cloud? It is very much the same reverberations of those conversations today, right? And I think when it comes to execution risk, yes, you can clear and over-clear those security hurdles, but what will essentially get someone like Robin and our customers comfortable with the execution is showing quick time to value and actual ROI. It can't just be feature heavy and a cool thing. It's not sexy generative AI.
I mean, it's interesting. It's refreshing that the trend out of Silicon Valley is it's not the shiny new toy anymore. It's results.
100%.
Okay, and the shiny new toy is results.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how it's flipped a little bit from look how cool this is to it's cool and relevant, it makes money.
Yeah.
It's not so much only business, it's got some tech involved. It's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, do you agree with that too?
Yeah, and like I said, the relationship component is super important. Deepak's built a great relationship with our technology and security team as well. And that day one, clear the hurdle on security, the next piece is like, how do we get to a very high standard of comfort? So like I said, that piece is super important.
Deepak, I love the AI native vibe because I think that culture is a cultural thing right now, and it's faster and it's data centric. and data hungry, to use your words. So with that in mind, what are you eating up for data from OpenTable there? Because they have a lot of data. So how do you scope the data opportunity? How do you attack that and turn that into value?
Well, I think there was always a question is there enough data to train your models and actually make those agentic workflows like effective? Nearly 3 decades of data, like take for example your CRM. There's a lot of stuff in there. I don't even think that's a question. There's more than enough data. What's important again is that we're keeping it confined specifically and exclusively to the use cases of OpenTable. We're not sharing that, right? That's number one. Again, going back to the security clearance. But most importantly, what are those signals, right? Like, I like to think of agentic workflows as swarms of agents. We have a library of agents that do 1,001 different things. Going to town on that stack, getting those signals, understanding what should be the right action. Again, going back to the concept of human-augmented AI, we're not replacing people. We're amplifying their current work, right? That productivity per head count, like that should be the right KPI. That's what we're seeing more and
the human augmentation is actually a good strategy because you reduce the risk of anything happening because you're now scoping it on some workloads, some process that you could manage, get the wins. And in fact, it's interesting to see Anthropic and OpenAI kind of have different positions on this. Anthropic really wants to see the human. I mean, most of their contracts, this may be information that may not be written yet, but I know from firsthand data that Anthropic won't sign certain contracts unless a human is in the loop, mainly because they know more.
Right.
So that kind of does cause fear, but it does bring up the point of like agents are in their own way, like their own workflow. So and they're also going to take action.
Yeah.
So it does open up questions of security, compliance, governance, but the productivity, if unlocked, the juice is worth the squeeze, as they say.
That's a bet, right? And yes, all things AI agentic are the buzzword, but I think there's a bifurcation going on in terms of how AI native companies are producing their workflows and working with customers, right? I think that old adage of, West Coast tech companies worry about raising money. Out here in New York, maybe I'm biased because I'm from Queens, but we're worried about making money, right? And I think the proof is going to be in the pudding. Like, Robin should never talk to me again if I can't show him ROI, right? And 2026 is the year to prove
Well, it's interesting, I grew up in New Jersey, been in California for 25 years, just moved here to open up our set here in the studio. It's interesting, 10 years ago, you couldn't walk around Manhattan and hear anyone talk about Kubernetes. Last summer I was in Chinatown and I'm just literally randomly walking and I hear 2 guys talking, Kubernetes, I'm like, what? So New York tech scene is booming.
Yes.
Clearly, certainly with COVID, the migration in, it is a tech hub because the customers are here.
Yes.
And I think there's more of a platform thinking vibe here in New York than I've ever seen in the past decade. And now with agents, I mean, most of the hot startups are in New York.
Yes.
Why? Because there's a lot of enterprise customers. And enterprise customers, the consumerization has happened. Now with wearables and physical AI, hospitals, every vertical is going to have a piece of it. This is where, again, the transformation story, what you're sitting in this position, is either going to ride that wave or someone else will. But I think you're in a good position with OpenTable. From an unbiased perspective, you guys are pretty locked in.
Also a huge SME, internal client base here in New York City as well. There's a lot of really interesting startups I'm seeing that, especially in restaurant tech where I sit, that are servicing small medium enterprises in this city. So everything's sort of here, the ecosystem, already popping. And I think that's why things like the Agent AI conference is going to be here. It's going to be
the SME angle is a good one, and I think if you look at that and you unpack it a bit, you say, okay, go back a decade or 2 or 15 years. If I had an idea to say service a restaurant, I'd have to go get a prototype, raise some money. What's the TAM? What's the execution? Now with low code, no code, business model, business logic, domain expertise, someone who actually had a restaurant could say, hey, I see opportunity, and for very little capital, be in business. This is going to open up potentially growth for you guys, I see, as an ecosystem. Are you thinking ecosystem developers? What's your vision on that piece? Because I think that would open up massive use case opportunity and help serve your customers through OpenTable.
Yeah, we have hundreds of integrations already, and we're adding more and more each day, actually. So one of our more recent sectors that we've been integrating with is voice AI, and I think that's been the fastest uptake of any integration that we've had. It's the speed of uptake of voice AI in restaurants has been incredible just in the last 6 months, and if you look like 12 months, almost out of standing start now. It's a significant part of restaurant operations in New York.
Yeah, that's why I really like what Simon and the team have done with Agent Conference. It really had a humble beginning. It was a community of developers and entrepreneurs hanging out, exchanging notes, building stuff. Now the wave is there. How do you guys see that developing? Because I see a lot of similarities between what NVIDIA was doing with CUDA a decade ago. I mean, not a decade ago, but now Age is a much shorter time frame. I see a similar agentic infrastructure mindset where it's like there's some core people getting together, working on stuff that's going to move the needle.
Yeah.
What's your opinion?
I think it's going to get bigger, and it's reflective of the shift from this vibe coding, consumer-based methodology to how you actually, where does the rubber hit the road, especially when you're talking about enterprise, right? So it's only natural, these types of summits, the AI Agent Conference, you're going to have to get the right folks in the room. We're looking forward to in May. Let's get to the brass tacks around what is OpenTable doing in terms of implementing and deploying AI in the right way with an ROI constructive methodology. That's the exciting part. People will want to know that. And to your point, in New York, that's where enterprise customers are. You know,
it's interesting, the whole SaaS software is changing. It's actually growing. It's just getting more invisible. You can have a voice prompt. That's an interface. You can kind of hide, but there's actually more software coming online than we've ever seen before. So the whole thesis of something's replacing something else is with software's replacing software. So the net is net grows better software.
Better software. You can now, it's more easy for different pieces of software to talk to each other. As you mentioned, integrations, startups building on top of our platform. That's really changed in the last 2-3 years. The typical restaurateur, I think, on average, is 10 to 15 pieces of technology they use in their restaurant. Crazy for a mom and pop.
Yeah.
It's almost like a tech company. And now with agentic, now with ability to write code faster, all the systems can start talking to each other.
Well, you guys got a great opportunity. Congratulations, and look forward to seeing you at the event. Thanks for coming into theCUBE here at our NYSE Wired CUBE studios. CUBE original program we've been kicking off for over a year. It's getting bigger and bigger. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Right, I'm John Furrier, host of theCUBE. It's a preview of the Agent Conference coming up in May. Again, this is where the leaders are convening, talking about what they're building, what tech they're doing, integrations, trust, relationship, delegation. This is the new, I call it the new API. Agents need to talk to each other, they need to be managed, they need to have compliance and security, all that's going on super fast, and the end result is benefits to people, applications, owners, businesses, enterprises, and so on. So keep it here at theCUBE. Thanks for watching.